You know what's strange? We praise mature children as if maturity is always a gift. You're so responsible. You're wise beyond your years. You never caused trouble. But sometimes that wasn't wisdom. Sometimes that was a child learning that being small was dangerous, needing too much was risky, and relaxing meant something could fall apart. Some people didn't grow up slowly, they got emotionally promoted before they were ready. Stay with me because what I'm about to tell you will completely change how you see people who were forced to grow up too fast. Maybe you were the kid who knew the sound of footsteps before you knew your times tables. You could tell who was angry by the way a door closed. You heard dishes in the sink, a parent sighing in the hallway, the low hum of tension in the house, and your body would quietly switch on. You didn't need anyone to explain the mood. You could smell it in the air. Maybe you packed your own lunch while other kids were still being reminded where their shoes were. Maybe you translated adult problems in your head: bills, arguments, illness, divorce. Somewhere along the way, you became the calm one, the helper, the one who didn't ask for too much. Psychologists call one version of this parentification. It's when a child is pushed into adult-like responsibilities before their nervous system is built for them. Gregory Jurkovich's work on parentified children helped describe this pattern. The child becomes a caregiver, mediator, emotional support system, or tiny household manager, not because they chose leadership, but because the family quietly assigned them a role. PMC. And parentification can look deceptively impressive. You learn to cook early, you learn to comfort adults, you become good at reading needs before they're spoken. On the outside, everyone says, "Wow, you're so independent." But independence that comes from safety feels different from independence that comes from abandonment. Think of it like being handed the keys to a car at 9 years old. Yes, you might learn to drive, but part of you knows, I shouldn't have had to learn this yet. This is why, as an adult, you may struggle to receive help without feeling guilty. You may feel uncomfortable when someone says, "I've got you," because some part of you is waiting for the catch. Your brain learned early that love often came with a job description. But here's where it gets interesting. Growing up too fast doesn't just change your personality, it changes your stress system. Researchers call this toxic stress, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, including Jack Shonkoff and colleagues, has written about how prolonged childhood adversity can keep the body's stress response activated in ways that affect learning, behavior, and health. Toxic stress isn't "I had a bad day." It's more like living in a house where the alarm system keeps going off, even when there's no visible fire. PubMed 2. Your body starts treating unpredictability as normal. Cortisol, adrenaline, vigilance, scanning. You learn to monitor the room, you learn to anticipate the next emotional weather change. Because this helped you survive, your brain stores it as useful. So when someone says, "Why can't you just relax?" they're missing the point. Your body may not read relaxation as safe. This is why unanswered texts feel louder than they should, why you overprepare for everything, why you can walk into a room and instantly know who's upset. What other people call overthinking might be an old survival skill that never got the memo that the danger passed. And then there's hypervigilance. Psychologists use this word to describe a heightened scanning for threat. Research by Dalglish and colleagues in 2001 found that children and adolescents with PTSD showed a visual attentional bias towards social threat words. In plain English, the brain becomes very good at noticing danger-shaped things. Insarc CBU, Camzadares Isa ACRUK. Imagine your mind as a security camera. Most people's cameras record when movement happens. Yours may have been recording all night. Not because you're dramatic, because at some point missing a signal had consequences. This is why you notice the micro pause before someone answers. The tiny shift in someone's tone, the way a smile doesn't reach the eyes. Sometimes this makes you incredibly perceptive. You can read a group dynamic like a second language. But the cost is exhaustion. When your brain is always watching for what might go wrong, peace can feel suspicious. Calm can feel like the quiet before something bad happens, and that's not intuition every time. Sometimes it's your nervous system replaying an old map over a new room. Another piece is attachment adaptation. Bowlby and Ainsworth's attachment research showed how early caregiving shapes whether a child expects people to be safe, responsive, and emotionally available. When children feel secure, they explore because they trust there's a safe base to return to. PMC. But if you had to grow up too fast, you may not have had a consistent safe base. You may have become your own safe base. Which sounds powerful until you realize how lonely it is. So now, closeness can feel complicated. You want connection, but dependence feels dangerous. You want love, but needing someone may feel like handing them a weapon. You might be the person who says, "I'm fine," even when you're not, because fine was once the safest answer. Psychologists sometimes call this compulsive self-reliance. It's not just independence, it's the belief that needing others will cost you something. This is why you can be deeply caring but strangely hard to care for. You'll show up for everyone, fix every problem, but when someone asks what you need, your mind goes blank. Now, before this turns into a simple, trauma made you strong speech, we need to be honest. For some people, being mature wasn't empowerment, it was emotional hiding. It was learning not to cry because crying made things worse. It was being praised for being low maintenance when really you had learned that your needs were inconvenient. It was becoming the strong one in a family where strength meant nobody had to check on you. And there's a difference between healthy maturity and trauma-based maturity. Healthy maturity says, "I can handle life." Trauma-based maturity says, "I'm not allowed to fall apart." Healthy independence has choice in it. Trauma independence feels like exile. Healthy empathy connects you to people. Trauma empathy makes you responsible for everybody's emotions. That distinction matters. Because not every skill you developed has to be rejected. But not every skill deserves to keep running your life. The reframe is this: you're not broken, you're adapted, you're not too intense. You learn to notice what others missed, you're not bad at relaxing. Your body learned that stillness wasn't always safe. You're not cold because you struggle to ask for help. You're someone who had to become reliable before reliability was given to you. Because the child version of you was brilliant. That kid figured out how to survive inside a world that asked too much. They became useful, quiet, responsible, invisible, impressive, whatever worked. But adult you gets to ask a different question now. Not, "How do I survive this room?" But, "Do I even want to stay in rooms where I have to disappear?" Healing doesn't always look like becoming soft overnight. Sometimes it starts with letting yourself be inconvenient in tiny ways. Needing rest, asking twice. Letting someone help without immediately paying them back with emotional labor. You don't have to shame the armor, it protected you, but you also don't have to sleep in it forever. People who grew up too fast often carry a strange kind of beauty. They see layers, notice pain, and understand silence. Maybe that's why they love so carefully. They know what it costs when love becomes responsibility too early. So if you were forced to grow up too fast, maybe the story isn't that your childhood disappeared. Maybe it's that some part of it has been waiting for you to come back without needing to earn the right to be cared for. If this hit home, subscribe to the Psyche Code. If you want to support these deep dives, hit the join button. If this resonated, you'll probably love the next video on why emotionally strong people secretly feel exhausted.